bengkel ini akan direkod oleh Dr. Sharifah Muzlia. Alright, kita mulakan bengkel kita pada petang ini dengan surah Al-Fatihah. Amin, 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 ya Rabbal Alamin. Okey. Alright, terima kasih diucapkan kepada semua participants, semua pelajar sama ada daripada part 7, pelajar part 8 mahupun yang mengambil semulalah AE ini pada semester ini. Alright, sebelum kita mulakan dengan bengkel pada hari ini, sebelum saya memperkenalkan anda semua dengan penceramah kita pada hari ini, saya ingin mengingatkanlah kepada semua pelajar part 8, pelajar part 8 di mana anda semua seharusnya aware lah dengan tarikh-tarikh yang telah pun saya share di dalam grup WhatsApp part 8, di mana pada 14 Julai 2022 pelajar part 8 perlu submit soft copy AE kepada supervisors. Kemudian pada 21 Julai supervisor akan return the soft copy untuk tujuan editing. Dan pada 28 Julai 2022 semua part 8 student haruslah submit satu soft copy original receipt, AE meeting form, dan juga yang ini bergantunglah kepada supervisor masing-masing sama ada they request you to submit one CD or PDF format of your AE. Dan seterusnya supervisor akan submit lah markah keseluruhan kepada saya untuk key in. Alright. Kemudian berkaitan dengan tarikh bengkel. Sepatutnya bengkel yang pertama adalah reviewing chapter 1 to 3. Tetapi oleh kerana sebab-sebab yang tidak dapat dielakkan, maka bengkel reviewing chapter 1 to 3 akan dibawa kepada esok pada jam 10 hingga 12 tengah hari. Oleh sebab itu kita mulakan dulu bengkel kita hari ini dengan essential steps in data analysis writing. Dan penceramah kita pada hari ini adalah Dr. Muhamad Fariduddin. Beliau sememangnya pakar, bagi saya dia memang expert dalam quantitative research, mixed method dan banyak lagi. Saya sendiri pun memang belajar juga dengan Dr. Farid. So, saya harap anda semua janganlah orang kata apa, malu-malu, jangan segan bertanya. Kalau ada yang tidak faham, especially kalau you all dah memang ni dah collect data dan sebagainya, kalau ada soalan nak bertanya, jangan malu, jangan segan, tanya kepada Dr. Farid. Segala kemusykilan anda itu insyaAllah beliau dapat menjawabnya. Jadi tanpa kita membuang masa lagi, alright, masa itu sangatlah berharga. Saya serahkan kepada Dr. Farid kita. Dipersilakan. Betul? Bismillah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Baiklah, terima kasih saya ucapkan kepada Dr. Nur Hayati selaku penyelaras AE dan juga bersama-sama iaitu Dr. Sharifah Muzlia yang sentiasa mengadakan inisiatif bengkel AE ini untuk memastikan semua pelajar dapat menghasilkan AE dalam keadaan yang terbaiklah. Baiklah, just a little bit of introduction about myself. I'm Dr. Muhammad Fariduddin. I'm a senior lecturer from the Department of Physical and Health Education ataupun Department PJK lah daripada Fakulti Pendidikan Jadi kalau pelajar-pelajar PJK ada dekat dalam grup ataupun ada dalam sesi kita hari ini, mungkin mereka kenal lah. Untuk pelajar-pelajar lain mungkin saya tak kenal anda. And you also did not turn on your camera, so I don't really know whether that how am I supposed to interact with all of you. Tapi tidak apa, sepanjang sesi perkongsian ni kalau ada apa-apa soalan boleh terus tanyalah on your mic and also terus tanyalah. Jadi untuk sesi AE klinik saya hari ini, saya rasa pelajar-pelajar part 7 part 8 and also those who repeat the AE itself, you probably have completed your chapter 1, 2 and 3 ya. But probably chapter 4 and 5 mungkin you masih dalam proses. Ada yang sedang mengutip data, ada yang telah pun mengutip data. Jadi saya rasa if you already completed your data collection, then this bengkel adalah yang terbaik lah untuk anda buat masa inilah. Because you are going to analyze and also you're going to learn how to interpret and how you're going to write your chapter 4 effectively. So my sharing session for today is about essential steps. The reason why I wrote down essential steps is because there are certain steps involved in writing your chapter 4 effectively. And my area is specifically for quantitative research. If you are dealing with qualitative research, tidak apa, stay more actually. But there will be another session by Dr. Ilya, if I'm not mistaken. She will be representing on the qualitative area. So on quantitative research hari ini, saya rasa majority banyaklah pelajar-pelajar menggunakan pendekatan kuantitatif untuk awak punya AE. So bagaimana nak tulis chapter 4 dengan betul? So itu yang kita akan cuba cover lah in the next 1 or 1.5 hours. Jadi saya try untuk buat secara santai, bagi sedikit contoh, dan kalau ada apa soalan kita boleh tanya terus atau boleh tanya gunakan ruangan chat atau boleh tanya semasa Q&A session nantilah. InsyaAllah kita akan habis on time sekitar jam 4 ataupun mungkin awal pada itu. Baiklah, boleh Kalau dengan itu, kalau everything is okay, any response ke? Ada apa-apa tak? Tak ada apa So kita mula Alright. So let's take a look at apa yang kenapa slide tak bergerak ni? Okay, alright. So this is going to be the outline of your chapter 4. So chapter 4 in the first place, the heading will be data analysis lah. Data analysis for chapter 4 because you know that there's a specific headings for all chapters in the thesis itself. So chapter 4 will be data analysis and chapter 5 will be results and discussion. So data analysis. So what entails data analysis? So this will be the details yang kena ada dekat dalam awak punya chapter 4 lah in terms of how you're going to manage the writing itself. But ini adalah isi ataupun intipati kandungan yang kena ada dekat dalam chapter 4. Jadi kena ada headings berkaitan dengan introductions, demographic profiles, descriptive analysis, normality testing, and then you have to outline your research objective, questions and hypothesis. And then you proceed with your inferential statistics, and then you also need to write about your assumptions, and then barulah you akan tulis you punya analysis output. Jadi setiap elemen ini sebenarnya sangat-sangat penting dan tak boleh kita tinggalkan lah dalam awak punya chapter 4 writing itself. Jadi kita akan tengok one by one apa yang saya maksudkan dengan ini. And also for your information, writing a chapter 4 for quantitative research definitely of course lah dia memerlukan penguasaan yang baik, especially dekat dalam ilmu statistik. So I'm sure all of you of part 7 and part 8 you have gone through code 5, I can't remember the code lah, EDU code something 541 tak silap saya berkaitan dengan analisis statistik. Jadi you dah belajar statistik, jadi you kena korek balik textbook tu, you kena rajin-rajin tengok dan kena rajin-rajin macam mana kita nak translate output daripada SPSS output itu ke dalam kita punya thesis writing. Alright. So now let's begin with the introduction. Introduction ni sebenarnya memang penting lah. In each of this chapter itself memang akan ada introduction. Jadi sama juga dengan chapter 4 memang kena ada introductions in which I highly recommend that it shouldn't be too long. Half a page is highly recommended, but what needs to be explained in your introduction part is of course bila kita masuk pada chapter 4 ini, biasanya kita akan mention straight away tentang the variables yang kita ukur lah dekat dalam kita punya penyelidikan. So of course, for example, you have several variables yang you measure dekat dalam you punya penyelidikan tersebut. Jadi kita akan fokus, kita nak jelaskan tentang apa variables yang kita nak ukur dalam kita punya study, basically just on the surface. And then you also going to mention a little bit about bagaimana you mengukur bagaimana you mengukur awak punya variable tersebut, and then you juga akan jelaskan tentang the nature of the data that you've collected, and then apakah bentuk analisis yang you akan jalankan yang berkaitan dengan variable tersebut, and then itu yang you akan gambarkan. So technically in this introduction session is just about giving a forefront informations, okay, to the readers on what you're going to analyze, okay, in this particular chapter and what will be the output of it. Alright, so technically samalah, konsep yang sama saja untuk chapter 1, chapter 2 dan juga chapter 3 lah, the introduction part itself. So now moving on, we will go to the very first part. Ini memang kena ada lah dalam bila kita menulis chapter 4. Okay, because you are going to tell the readers about the demographic profiles. Okay, demographic profiles refer kepada apa? Nama pun demographics. So they are actually referring to the characteristics of your samples. You have your research samples kan in your studies. So now the readers wanted to know apa yang dimaksudkan dengan awak punya research sample ini. Siapakah mereka? Okay, how many of them actually involved in your study? So this actually you're going to outline the every details associated with your research samples. So you are going, let's say you have collected the data in this particular several classes in this particular schools. So that particular classes will be your research samples kan. Jadi kita nak tahu apakah bentuk, okay, dia mereka punya profile, the profilings of these students itself in this particular schools. Okay, so that's why you have your demographic profiles untuk kita mengenali dahulu, okay, regarding our sample. So selain daripada itu, dalam demographic profile ini, you juga perlu tulis berkaitan dengan attrition effects. So what does it mean by attrition effects? Attrition effect bermaksud is the kehilangan. Because you know for a fact kan, biasanya bila kita buat dalam chapter 3, while we're doing our sampling method, we also going to include 5, 10% or 15% attrition effects kan. Maksudnya kita ada kebarangkalian kita akan kehilangan sampel semasa mengutip data. Maka dengan itu, that's why kita semasa kita membuat sampling, kita akan add on beberapa percentage, okay, like 5 to 10 or 15 from the overall sample size to make sure we can cater the attrition effects. Jadi itu yang kita maksudkan. So you need to write a sentence to show that, okay, ada apa kesan tak? Ada kesan attrition tak? Ataupun ada kesan kehilangan sampel ataupun tidak? Memang kena tulis dekat situ. Let's say you say that, okay, all of the students responded, okay, to the questionnaire that you have distributed, which actually shows the zero or very minimal attrition effects, for example. Jadi kena adalah statement menunjukkan bahawasanya tidak ada kehilangan sampel. Sometimes memang kebiasaannya ada, kalau kita buat pendidikan akan ada, di mana kita akan cakap, okay, 5 the data is actually missing, so kita ada attrition effect lah. Kesan attrition itu berlaku sebanyak 0.5% for example from the total sample size for example. So you need to have that particular statement. That is the first things. Dan kedua juga kita kena jelaskan tentang response rate. Dan response rate ini memang kena supported by certain references. For example, response rate ni ada kaedah kita nak mengukur. So when you explain about response rate, for example, you distributed the questionnaire to different district, for example, and then you in return you receive a 100% response rate. Maksudnya setiap you punya sampel dalam kajian tu menjawablah kepada awak punya questionnaire. Sometimes dia ada kiraan di mana you menerima response rate sebanyak, for example, you distributed 1,000. Tapi you dapat 900. Jadi berapa you punya response rate dekat situ? 90% kan? Jadi you need to have a certain references to support di mana certain percentage of response rates is acceptable in your data collection procedure. Memang ada setengah itu kalau terlalu rendah kita tak boleh terima. Okay, jadi memang kena juga jelaskan dalam satu statement tentang awak punya response rate lah. Okay, so it needs to be supported by reference or references if possible. Okay. So seterusnya adalah of course in writing your chapter 4 dia bermain dengan numbers. Okay. Ada soalan ni? Oh, soalannya daripada tak boleh baca. Soalan mana tu
Maaf, saya yang tanya Dr. Farid.
Oh, Dr. Lia tanya. Okey.
Boleh ke? Tadi response rate tu, adakah response rate bila kita campur dengan attrition rate dia jadi 100% of data yang kita dapat asal. Is that right?
Betul.
Betul.
Betul. Correct. Betul. Apa yang Dr. Lia cakap.
Okey.
Betul. Terima kasih Dr. Lia. Okey. Alright. So seterusnya in chapter 4 itself, okay, now kita perlu tahu when we writing quantitative so there's a lot of numbers. So bila kita dapat banyak data ni, kita kena belajar macam mana cara kita nak mempersembahkan data dalam bentuk yang paling ringkas tetapi dia very meaningful. Itu yang susah sebenarnya, okay, in quantitative research, because we as a researcher, you need to ensure that not all the numbers is important. Maksudnya tak semua yang kita dapat output tu kita nak persembahkan dalam kita punya thesis itself. So you need to be very careful on that lah. Maksudnya kita kena tahu what is relevant. Apa yang orang pembaca nak tahu saja. Yang itu banyak especially dekat dalam SPSS output. Nanti saya tunjukkan contoh dia. Okay. Jadi sekarang ni kita akan tabulate kita punya demographic profile dalam bentuk standard table. Ada dia punya standard table lah. Sebenarnya table ini kita boleh refer banyak daripada contoh tesis-tesis lepas. We have a previous thesis, okay, dalam MyIPO for example, or you can just take a look at all kinds of journals, mereka akan ada standard table, so you just adapt to it, alright, and then you design accordingly, okay, based on your demographic profiles of your samples lah, okay. So perkara kedua, bila kita nak design the table itself, kita kena kenali data. Tidak semua kita boleh terus simply outline dia punya information itself. For example, dekat sini, I'm sure kalau you dah belajar statistik, you tahu kan beza di antara categorical versus continuous data. So ini kena tahulah sebab apa? Sebab tak semua kita boleh hasilkan mean standard deviation. Kadang-kadang saya nampak student saya buat categorical data tapi dalam bentuk mean dan standard deviation. Jadi itu sangat-sangat salah lah. So you kena, maksudnya itu menunjukkan bahawa pelajar saya memang tak faham tentang ilmu statistik. Okay, so you have to know categorical data is categorical data, continuous data, then only you can generate the mean and also the standard deviation. Jadi bila kita kumpul kita punya demographic profiles, some of it are actually measured in terms of categorical, some of it are measured in terms of continuous data. So this actually based on researcher on how you wanted to maneuver and also play around with your data lah, and how you're going to present it. Jadi saya ada contoh dekat sini, contoh-contoh yang kita boleh tengok dari segi demographic profiles kat ni. Jadi biasanya the standard that we usually display our demographic profiles is we're going to use frequency and also percentage. Frequency bermaksud kekerapan lah. Jadi tengok dekat situ age. Jadi age dekat sini, age can be a continuous. Tapi dekat sini, let's say kita, sometimes kita ukur age, kita akan tanya kita punya respondent, umur berapa? Very subjective. So ada yang letak 17, 18, 19 dan sebagainya. Sometimes kita juga sebagai researcher kalau nak mudahkan kita punya demographic presentation, kita boleh groupkan, jadikan dia sebagai categorical. So for example ni dah jadikan kategori 19 ke 35, 36 ke 50. Biasanya kita akan letak dalam bentuk categorical untuk memudahkan presentation of our demographic profiles lah. Dan kita gunakan frekuensi dan kita translate menjadikan percentage. Jadi you tengok dekat situ so ada banyak kaedah lah, tapi biasanya kalau you tengok yang saya highlighted dalam green color ni, yes, usually I outline sebegini. N refer to frequency dan dalam kurungan percentage. Korang terus tahulah 20 ni frequency, percentage dia adalah this one. For example jadi ini tak perlulah kira secara manual. Dalam SPSS ada, you just have to klik saja run, semua dia keluar. And then you extract the information accordingly and then you persembahkan you punya demographic profile terlebih dahulu. I also have a few other examples. So there you are. So you see, so walaupun dia mengkategorikan age ni dari segi lelaki dan juga perempuan, tetapi because this age is measured, okay, dalam satu bentuk sebagai continuous data, hence that's why dia boleh generate mean dan juga standard deviation. Jadi umur, okay, education in years, okay, sebab ini data yang diukur secara berterusan, bukan secara categorical, maka dia boleh kita generate dalam bentuk mean dan juga standard deviation. So please be very careful. It shows that whether you understood statistics ataupun tidak dari segi jenis-jenis data and how you going to generate the output. Okay, jadi jangan ada tiba-tiba gender male and female, kemudian tapi kita ukur dalam bentuk categorical, tiba-tiba keluar mean and standard deviation. So kita tahulah benda itu salah. So please be careful on that. Jadi kena kenali jenis data, kena belajar jenis data dahulu. Right, okay. Jadi macam mana kita nak explain? How are you going to write the output of this? Okay, dekat dalam you punya thesis itself. Yes, the answer will be as simple as ataupun kita kata terjemahkan saja nombor ini, okay, ke dalam bentuk ayat lah, struktur ayat. Maksudnya bila demografik ni dia tak ada kaedah tertentu dalam kita nak menulis. It's just as easy as whatever is on the table, you describe it. Okay, dalam bentuk penulisan. Okay, itu sahajalah in terms of writing the demographic profiles. Okay, so I think so far clear. Is there any question associated with demographic profiles? Tak ada. Okay, kalau tak ada, maybe saya boleh proceed. Saya assume tak adalah kalau tak ada apa-apa respon. Okay, alright. So, seterusnya, we are done with our demographic profiles. Jadi, bila readers atau yang membaca thesis dah faham, okay, inilah kita punya sampel. Okay, kita dah ada berapa attrition, berapa response rate. Okay, tengok demografik, okay, dah dapat gambaran. Oh, inilah dia sampel kita, begini rupanya. Okay, daripada mana latar belakang mereka dan sebagainya. So, now kita dah mengenali sampel. So, seterusnya, okay, kita akan terus proceed kepada analisis. Jadi analisis dekat sini dalam chapter 4 ni, kita sebenarnya dalam statistics we have two different kinds of analysis lah. One is descriptive, another one is inferential. In case you're wondering, Dr. apa beza descriptive dan inferential? You've learned the statistics before. Inferential statistic bermaksud analisis yang hendak membuktikan the hypothesis. So those are the things that you learn, the t-test, the independent t-test, dependent t-test, one-way, two-way, ANOVA, MANOVA, MANCOVA, UNCOVA, multinomial logistic regression, multiple linear regression, kan? Itulah semua chi-square, the association test, all kinds of saya tak nak mention lah. Itu semua inferential statistic. What about descriptive statistic? Apa maksud descriptive statistics? So before you proceed with inferential, you must start with descriptive dahulu. Kena tulis descriptive analysis dahulu. Kenapa kena ada descriptive analysis? Apa maksud descriptive analysis? Descriptive analysis is you describe the output of your analysis. Describe dahulu. Describe dahulu. Jangan kita sibuk nak berlumba-lumba nak terus buktikan sesuatu dengan inferential. No, don't proceed with that first. Proceed with descriptive first. Why I'm saying descriptive is very important, I will show to you later. Jadi, descriptive ni maksudnya apa? You have various kind of instrument kan yang you collect data berdasarkan intended variables, am I right? For example, the first variables that you wanted to measure is knowledge. Second, you're looking at their technical skills. Third, you're looking at their cognitive skills. Fourth, you're looking at the observation analysis lah. Semua ni kuantitatif, diukur secara kuantitatif lah dengan menggunakan beberapa instrumen. Jadi kita nak tengok the pattern of this particular data first. Because kita tahulah sometimes macam sini saya kata each research instrument represent a variables lah. But sometimes satu instrumen pun boleh ukur multiple variables. For example, okay, contohlah. Jadi ini yang kita nak explain. These are the data that we wanted to explain. But we're going to explain this secara bentuk descriptive. Okay. Why I'm saying descriptive is very important? Sebab, why? Because descriptive is like this. For example, you have gathered the score, the scoring of the knowledge for group, this group and this group, for example. Then you notice, okay, the value of this score is higher lah. This one is lower. So this already give some things to you because you as a researcher, you will probably have a pool of literature previously. So you have read a lot of things. You know for a fact that, for example, okay, I've read this by saying that if I do such intervention, okay, I will get an increase in terms of the score, for example, contoh. So when you conduct your research, there you are. You started to receive the pattern. When you started to collect the data, you analyze, the scoring for this is true. When I did the similar intervention, okay, I noticed, okay, the score is higher, for example. Then it started to infer. It gives you something. Dia infer awal-awal, dia bagi satu gambaran awal kepada kamu. That's why descriptive sebenarnya sangat penting. Rather than you cepat-cepat nak membuktikan sesuatu kepada inferential. Okay. Tetapi you have to remember one thing. You need to have this, yang bawah sekali ni saya kata. But it cannot prove the output. Descriptive ni satu, sebab dia hanya menggambarkan, menjelaskan, describing something. Hence, it cannot prove anything. Regardless of how good is your research, you publish your paper, for example, and then you started with lots of argument in supporting why is it higher, why is it lower. But if you did not prove it, kalau you tak prove, maka ianya macam orang kata sia-sialah. Okay, saya kata sebabnya apa? Sebab descriptive dia tak boleh kita buktikan apa-apa. It's just a matter of describing. Hence, that's why kita kena buat pembuktian hipotesis. That's why we have to proceed with inferential statistics. Okay, any questions, anyone so far? All good? Good, eh? Am I still connected?
Yes, good.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for the response. Okay. So there you are. So macam saya cakap tadi tu, you need to add a statement. Mesti ada satu statement dekat situ. Kenapa? Nanti saya tunjuk macam mana saya add that particular statement itself by stating or highlighting the facts that yes, you cannot prove this unless ataupun until saya buat saya punya inferential statistical analysis later. Jadi sekarang ni kita akan tengok how you going to describe ataupun macam mana you akan tulis the output of your descriptive analysis. Okay, I'm giving only one example ya. Contoh. So let's say I have instruments and the variables that I measure. For example, this is multiple choice questions. This is actually intended to measure the score of the knowledge students. Let's say you buat intervention lah. Okay, you do it simple interventions. You measure the multiple choice question. You wanted to see the effects of this intervention. Post intervention, how about the score? So you measure via MCQ test to see the knowledge. Okay, and then you look at students' perceptions in terms of this intervention. You use a questionnaire. And then you also wanted to see students' skills, for example. So you guna checklist. Senarai semak lah, kemahiran, for example, technical. So macam mana kita akan present? How am I going to present this data in the form of descriptive? Okay, adakah saya akan jelaskan kaedah yang sama? Sama-sama macam saya tulis demografik tu? Okay, do you think it's the same or it's different? Sama atau tak sama? So jawapan dia sebenarnya adalah, kita tengok sekejap lagi Alright. So kalau demografik tadi saya kata whatever that is on the table, you present it in the form of written lah. Maksudnya daripada numerical tukar kepada penulisan. Tapi macam mana dengan deskriptif? Okay, sekejap Ini saya bagi contoh. Nah, extract somewhere lah. Okay, ini contoh. This is a simple intervention lah. This is experimental studies Kita ada kumpulan eksperimen, kita ada kumpulan kawalan. Jadi ini mengukur kepada knowledge lah, pengetahuan. Jadi saya dah groupkan. Contohnya dia groupkan markah daripada ni dan juga of course, okay, dia ada mean dan juga standard deviation. SP ni sisi yang awal lah, standard deviation. So bila kita, when you're going to write your chapter 4, remember the table heading must be at the top. Table heading mesti dekat atas. Rajah mesti dekat bawah dia punya ni. So let's say figure 1. Figure 1 memang tulis dekat bawah. Table mesti tulis dekat atas. Untuk mudah you hafal T, top. So you remember for life. Ini standard dia punya format. Regardless of any journals you intended to publish or any formats in thesis writing, it's a standard format. Because I've seen students yang letak table heading dekat bawah. Table. Tak boleh lah. Rajah di bawah. Table punya heading dekat atas. Table 1, table 2, table 2.1 for example. So how are you going to write this output? Jom kita tengok sama-sama. Let's see whether that you tahu ataupun tidak macam nak tulis output ni. Macam-macam kan, pelik kan? Of course you started to figure out. Okay, if let's say a normal student would definitely say, okay, whatever over here, dia akan cerita balik. Julat markah 0 ke 5, 0, 0. 10, 0, 0. Sebenarnya 1, 0. 16, 5, 7, 5, 5. Yes, kebanyakan akan tulis sebegitu. Tapi hakikatnya adalah salah. You tak boleh copy and paste the information dekat dalam you punya writing format tersebut. Not recommended at all. I have seen so many students, even at master's level, even at PhD level pun pernah jumpa juga. Dia tulis apa yang sama saja daripada table tersebut. Jawapannya bukan. A lot of people assume descriptive statistic is whatever is on the table, you write it down. No, descriptive statistic is describing. Describe. So you kena belajar macam mana describe the patterns of the data that you have collected. Kenapa penting? Sebab you as a researcher, you dah boleh forecast. You dah boleh forecast ini pattern of the data yang saya akan dapat ataupun telah saya dapat semasa saya mengutip data. Maka saya juga akan relate. I will try to relate the data, the output of the data together with the literature review that I had. The one that I have read, okay, those who had similar pattern, for example. So it started to give you an idea on how you're going to write, on how you're going to describe. Remember the pattern. The keyword should be the patterns of the data itself. Okay, so now let's take a look at how I actually wrote the output for these particular tables. Let's go with the very first one. This will be my very first point. So I'm saying that the range mark for experiment group recorded 16 to 20 at the lowest, whereas for control is at 11 to 15. For example, sebab apa? Sebab I'm looking at this and also I'm looking at this. That's my point lah. First point. Okay, you can actually add more. This is example of it. Second, I also said majority of the participants in both group actually score marks in range between majority sebab lebih kurang. And also majority sebab apa? Sebab kedua-dua ni menunjukkan this is the highest. Jadi saya kata memang majority memang skor markah dalam inilah 21 ke 26. So this is describing the patterns of the data. You got the idea? Ketiga, what will be my point? Because I knew above 27 is the passing rate. So how many actually pass? So I kata the experiment recorded the highest who actually pass compare dengan control. You see? So dia dah bagi beberapa idea and pattern macam mana you tulis descriptive. This is the right method in describing descriptive. Critically analyze and then you describe the output. Okay, what else? And saya juga cakap, you see, some of my keyword, I say it recorded the highest with double the percentage. You see, double the percentage. 8 dan 15, lebih kurang lah, estimated. Merely, you can use the word merely, estimated, approximately. Use that keyword eventually when you describe your descriptive stats. Then I add more. Nevertheless, the value of mean score for both control and experiment is actually all are nearly equal with very minimal differences. You see, it shows that you analyze it critically. Dari segi masa you menulis descriptive statistik tersebut. Okay. So last at least yang ini. Inilah saya kata tu. These are the despite no differences recorded, because like I said, it is nearly equal. So you would probably have infer that okay, ni tak ada beza ni, lebih kurang sama je control dan experiment. But I said despite no differences recorded, okay, these differences will be further determined through the Markova analysis. Sebab you tahu kan you akan buat inferential stats, maka you akan cakap saya akan analyze further dengan gunakan analysis inferential statistics. Okay, correct Jadi kena ada ini. Macam mana awak tulis secara how you analyze critically pun, tapi kena ada satu statement yang membuktikan bahawa ini tak bermakna apa-apa, saya tak menyokong ataupun tidak apa. Maksudnya saya hanya boleh membuktikan perbezaan tersebut bila saya membuat inferential statistical analysis. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to proceed with my next slide. Boleh ya? Yeah. Okay. So seterusnya bila kita we are done with descriptive. So remember descriptive ni you kena buat for every instrument, every variables yang you measure. You're done with the knowledge. Next, okay, you have done the instrument kan macam dekat sini. Questionnaire pula kan, buat benda yang sama. You ada checklist kan, buat benda yang sama. So you have to go section by section. Semua tu kena ada descriptive dia. Okay, right? So I think jelas Okay. So now you are done with the descriptive analysis. Okay, very good. Well done. So what's next? Next, you have to write about normality testings. Kenapa normality testing? Why normality testing kena ada dia punya section sendiri? Memang kena ada. Sebab apa? Sebab we are done with descriptive. Now we are moving forward towards inferential statistical analysis. Like I said, okay, in your writing dia mesti ada sequence kan. Jadi tadi kita dah kata kita tak boleh buktikan selagi kita tak buat inferential stat. Maka sekarang saya nak buktikan. So the next steps in my subsections in my writing in chapter 4, I'm going to write about normality testings. Okay. For those of you who have completed your statistical subject yang dah tamat tu, okay, you mesti dah belajar tentang normality testing. I'm not too sure pensyarah yang ajar kamu tu ajar atau tidak, but when I taught stats before, I taught normality testing because I knew this is very important. Okay, so ada ke? The response tak ada. Okay, alright, thank you. Okay, let's proceed further. Okay, so normality testing. Ingat normality testing ini hanya untuk inferential statistics saja. So if you're doing any form of analysis, okay, for inferential stats, kena ada normality testing. I'm sure ini you kena belajar statistik lah. You akan tahu apa itu normality testing. When you're going to do normality testing, kenapa kena buat, bila nak buat. You dah tahu. Kalau you belajar statistik, you akan tahu. Okay, so why normality testing? This is a very important test. Sebab apa? This is the test to inspect the data. To inspect the data representation, and also why we have to do normality testing, sebab this is the basic guideline untuk tentukan sama ada you will proceed with parametric ataupun you akan buat non-parametric. I'm sure you tahu apa tu parametric testing, apa tu non-parametric testing. Okay, tak apa. Kalau tak ingat, kejap lagi saya akan cuba untuk bantu you untuk ingat kembali. So, satu you kena tahu tentang normality testing, very sensitive testing. Okay, very sensitive testing, and dia sangat sensitif dan dia sangat mudah dipengaruhi oleh sample size. If your sample size is very big or if your sample size is very small, then dia akan affect awak punya normality testing. And output of normality testing must be supported by the reference or references. Mesti, pasti. You cannot just say that, okay, this data is actually represented, okay, it's normal. Tapi tak ada reference, tak boleh. Mesti ada. Okay. Dan lagi satu perkara tentang normality testing, kita tahu bahawasanya dia gunakan interpretasi dia berdasarkan researcher punya visual inspection, which means that I'm sure kalau you belajar stats, you mesti tahu kan, bila kita tengok output daripada SPSS, kita akan tengok dengan mata kita. Dengan mata kita. Jadi mata penyelidik ini. Jadi kalau kita tengok ianya normal, maka ianya normal. That's why kita kata it's actually based on researchers' eye interpretations. Okay? So that's why because kita kata sebab dia berdasarkan pengamatan saya, so other person can actually challenge. That's why I said for my masters and PhD students, all of your statistical output you must keep aside. You must keep aside, you print it out and you keep it. Because when you go for your examination, the Viva Voce examinations, if the examiner requested to take a look at the data itself, then you akan tunjuk data output tersebut. Okay, so that is benda-benda yang penting lah yang you kena tahu. Okay, associated dengan data analysis ni. Okay, moving on. Okay, saya bagi satu contoh lah. I'm going to use a very simple inferential statistical analysis, inferential stats yang paling mudah sekali lah. So we're going to do independent t-test lah. Okay, because kalau tak guna contoh, mungkin you tak akan nampak apa yang saya maksudkan. So how are we going to, macam mana kita akan mulakan ini? So let's say we're going to do independent t-test. Jadi dekat sini kita akan gunakan headings lah. You akan tulis dekat you punya thesis tu, headings tu. You akan tulis dulu contoh normality testing for independent t-test to determine the differences in MCQ scores between control experiment groups, for example. So kita tahulah heading dekat sini actually sudah nak membuktikan perbezaan di antara MCQ score, antara kumpulan kawalan dan juga eksperimen, okay, due to your research intervention, for example. So what is next? You already started to have you have your headings over here. So what's next? Next is you kena outline balik. Jadi remember your objective, questions and your hypothesis yang you ada dekat chapter 1 tu, yes, you kena masukkan balik dekat dalam stage ini. Mesti. Sebab apa? Supaya bila the reader itself tahu, okay, right now, heading ini sebenarnya nak membuktikan objektif ini, research question ini dan juga hypothesis ini. In case you're wondering, doktor, yang ini kenapa? Kalau tak ada, tak mungkin lah. You mesti ada hypothesis kan. You buat quantitative research. You would definitely, you dah tulis pun you punya hypothesis ni dekat chapter 1. Jadi, extract balik research objective number 1, research question number 1 ataupun research question 1 and 2 ke yang berkaitan dengan satu ni, okay, dan juga hypothesis dia. Jadi kena tulis null hypothesis. Null hypothesis yang you kena tulis dekat sini adalah bukannya we call it as the written hypothesis. This one is the statistical hypothesis. Okay, jadi null hypothesis ni ada kaedah menulis dia. I'm sure you tahulah, okay, sebab you dah buat chapter 1, 2, 3. Kalau you tak tahu tu pergi revise balik, tengok balik. Okay, dia ada statement hypothesis versus statistical hypothesis. Once you ada statement hypothesis, you kena supplement dengan statistical hypothesis. Sebab statistical hypothesis yang kita nak buktikan dekat dalam kita punya inferential statistic analysis. Faham ya? So research objective 1, research questions and also null hypothesis 1. For example, related to this independent t-test analysis. Okay, now moving on. So there you are. This will be the example of normality testing yang you kena lulus. Baru you boleh proceed dengan independent t-test. Maka you akan ceritalah. Okay. So kita ada 9 jenis normality testing. Ini adalah umum. Semua bentuk analisis. Any form of inferential stats yang you nak buat, tak kisahlah. One way, two way, Markova, MANOVA, okay, MLM, okay, MLR, for example, ya. So semua ini memang kita kena lalui. Okay. So you can either start, okay, these are the sequence. Dia ada hierarki. You boleh mula. You mula daripada you determine skewness, ketosis, Kolmogorov-Smirnov, Shapiro-Wilk, histogram, stem and leaf plot, normal QQ, detrended QQ, and also box plot. So 1 to 9, you akan pilih untuk guna yang mana satu. Ramai orang menganggap saya kena lulus 1, 2, 3 sampai 9. Jawapan dia tidak. Jawapan dia tidak. When you do normality testing, bila you dalam SPSS, you boleh run semua ni sekali. You will run every single thing of this inside your SPSS. But it also depends on your visual inspection. Which one will actually keluarkan result yang normal. Like I mentioned to you before, your sample size akan dictate you punya normality testing sebab dia very sensitive. Jadi kalau let's say you punya sample size kecil, very sensitive. Biasanya nombor 3 dan 4 ni mesti takkan lepas. Maka dia ikut hierarki. You can calculate skewness, you calculate ketosis. Oh, tak lepas lah doktor, tak apa. Tengok yang nombor 3. Tak lepas lah doktor, nombor 4 tak lepas. Tengok histogram. Histogram melalui pengamatan saya macam normal lah doktor. Okay, that's it. You're done. Kita ambil histogram. Kalau tak puas hati, tak apa. You takut nanti you kena argument, ada argument masa Viva. Tak apa, kita tengok stem and leaf plot. Okay, nampak normal. Tengok normal QQ dengan detrended, oh normal. Box plot pun normal. Okay, that's it. Proceed. You cukup dengan sekadar 1, 2 pun boleh, 3 pun boleh. Kalau you tak yakin, you masuklah semua. But based on my experience, okay, this 1, 2, 3 and 4, kalau dah ni, kita tak tengok dah yang ini. That's based on my experience. That's why in terms of hierarchy, here, number 1, 2, 3 and 4. Like I said, different people, especially statistician, they would probably have better knowledge than I am because I'm not a statistician. Tapi based on what I've learned, okay, from statistician, memang 1, 2, 3, 4 ni, okay, kalau dia dah lulus, luluslah. So tak perlu masukkan sampai 9. Kalau tidak panjang you punya chapter 4. Okay, alright. So ingat ya, kalau dia tak fulfill, proceed dengan yang seterusnya. Tak fulfill, proceed dia. So kalau langsung tak fulfill macam mana doktor? 1 tak okey, 2 tak okey, 3 tak okey, 9 pun tak okey. Senang kata semua 9 tak okey lah. Jadi apa maksudnya? Bermaksud data awak tu tak normal lah. The data are not normal. So what am I supposed to do now? Of course, most of the students yang datang kat saya, dia akan panik. Doktor, saya punya data tak normal. Macam mana? Macam mana? Saya tak boleh nak buat ke? Jawapan dia, kita ada alternatif. We have alternative. What is our alternative? This one. Itu yang saya cakap tadi tu. Parametric versus non-parametric testings. So each of this testing, we will have the equivalent of it. Let's say, for example, just now is your independent t-test. So we have Mann-Whitney. Mann-Whitney is the non-parametric testings. Jadi you kena baca assumptions lah untuk parametric versus non-parametric. Sometimes non-parametric sebenarnya memang diguna pakai untuk jumlah sample size yang terlalu kecil. Let's say sample tu ada 6 je atau 7 saja. Ramai orang cakap sampel kecil lah doktor, saya boleh buat ke inferential stat? Boleh. Siapa kata tak boleh? You buatlah non-parametric testing. Okay? Tak ada istilah kata, oh tak boleh doktor, sampel selalu kecil, maka saya kena pergi buat kualitatif. Itu dah lain dah pula maksudnya. It shows that you tak faham research method. Okay? You buatlah non-parametric testing, dia ada equivalent test dia. Okay? Tapi dia taklah begitu kompleks. For example, if you're going through, let's say, doktor saya nak buat multiple linear regression. Oh tapi data saya tak normal. Macam mana doktor? Multiple linear regression tak adalah untuk non-parametric testing. So yang itu macam mana? Yang itu adalah kaedah dia yang lain lah. But that one is actually more on advanced method lah, which I'm not going to share over here. But because you all are for AE ni memang biasanya you akan buat sampai level macam ni lah. ANOVA, one way, two way, MANOVA. MANOVA ada, pelajar EE dia buat MANOVA, MLR, okay, t-test, macam itulah sebenarnya. Okay, so remember, kalau tak normal, buat non-parametric testing. Okay, kalau you rasa macam saya buat inspection doktor, yang ini normal, then proceed dengan inferential stats. Okay, ada soalan ke? Tak ada? Boleh follow lagi? Okay, maka saya teruskan. Okay ke? Boleh? Ada feedback tak? Mungkin terlalu laju ke, terlalu apa ke? Saya tengok feedback dulu ke? Macam nak baca ruangan chat ya? Okay, here you go. Okay, tak ada apa-apa feedback. Okay, tak apa. Saya teruskan. Boleh saya teruskan ya? Dr. Lian boleh teruskan?
Okay, silakan Dr. Farid.
Okay, alright. Thank you. Okay, pukul berapa sekarang? Ke masih awal? Okay, coming to 1 hour. Okay, alright. And I have an hour. Okay, so now we are done with the parametric versus non-parametric. Maksudnya normality testing tadi kita telah pun selesai. Okay, so macam mana nak report normality testing ni? Normality testing ni kena report. You have to report in every section. Let's say this is the first section kan. Jadi research objective 1, question 1, hypothesis 1 kan. Let's say nanti lepas ni you akan proceed untuk you punya lain punya instrument, lain punya variable pula. Jadi konsep yang sama. Konsep yang sama, repeat yang sama. So kena start dengan normality dahulu. Cuma you kena berhati-hatilah, tak semua data itu kita nak tengok dia punya normality. Let's say for example, very famous one. Student usually buat yang ini. Buat dependency test. Nak ukur sebelum, selepas. Kan, nak tengok perbezaan skor. You tak ukur skor sebelum dan selepas, you ukur perbezaan skor. The differences in terms score, the differences in the score itself, those are the things that you need to measure the normality, the patterns of the data, not the data before and after the intervention. Jadi kena tengok juga, bukan semua data you kena access. Jadi you have to read more lah on the statistic, then you understand better. Okay, alright. So next is to go through assumption. Okay, so now let's say you are done with normality testing. Okay, doctor, now all my data are normal. I'm very happy. Of course, you're happy because why? Now you can complete your write-up. So seterusnya sekarang ni nak pergi ke mana? Sekarang ni kita akan tulis our inferential stats. Assumptions pula. Okay, so kita akan start lah tulis kita punya inferential statistic. Kita nak pergi to this particular section. Then you're trying to figure out, okay, kenapa ni? Apa pula maksud assumption ni? Again, kalau you dah belajar statistik, you mesti tahu kita ada assumptions. For every inferential statistical analysis ada assumption. Assumption ni adalah syarat-syarat di mana kita kena patuhi. If you fail to fulfill the requirements, then you cannot proceed. Or you have to do a certain analysis to do the backup lah. Okay, supaya you boleh proceed dengan analisis tersebut. Now, mind, I will show you an example. Then you get a better idea. Okay, jadi ingat bila dia keluar setiap assumptions ni, the more complicated the analysis. So let's say you compare an independent t-test with a multiple linear regression. Independent t-test only have 4 assumptions because it's a very simple test. Okay, you wanted to do MANOVA analysis. MANOVA analysis ada 10 assumption. Multiple linear regression ada 8 assumption. So the more complicated the analysis, the more assumptions need to be met. That's one thing you have to remember. Jadi macam mana nak menulis assumption ini, kena tulis one by one. Whether that things has been fulfilled ataupun tidak. Okay. So each of these assumptions will ataupun should be supported by the reference or references. Okay. So remember, sometimes this assumption you can run together in your SPSS analysis. Biasanya kita akan run sekali. Sometimes the assumptions appear dekat dalam you punya SPSS output. Jadi yang stage yang ini memang kena fahamlah tentang statistik. Okay, alright. So kita tengok contoh assumption untuk independent t-test. Very simple one. Like I mentioned to you, we only have 4. 4 assumptions of independent t-test. The first one is the skala pengukuran, the scale of measurement. It says over here the DV ni with your dependent variable, which means the one that you measure. The one that we measured just now was the knowledge, for example. So the knowledge must be in ratio of interval. Do I fulfill it? Of course, because the ratio score tadi tu adalah markah berterusan kan. Jadi dia dalam skala ratio. Dia adalah data dalam bentuk ratio. Maka tiada masalah. I have managed to fulfill the first one. Very good. So now let's proceed with the second one. Independence. Participates once in the research maksudnya. Of course, bila kita collect data, kita tak collect secara redundant. Kita tak pergi macam orang tu pertama kali, collect lagi sekali. Tidak. Okay, we only collect once. Sama juga you buat intervention pre and post, tapi kita collect orang yang sama, maka still consider as once. Okay, jadi nombor 2, check. Betul, boleh. Nombor 3, normality. Maksudnya kena normally distributed. Normality dah buat tadi. Betul tak? You buat you punya normality testing yang ini tadi. Kan? Yang ini. So sudah pun buat, sudah lulus normal datanya. Maka tiada masalah. Sebab tu saya kata, if the data are not normal, can I proceed with independent test? Cannot, because why? You failed this assumption. You failed the assumption number 3. Hence, you tak boleh proceed. You tak boleh buat. Jangan suka-suka buat. Okay. You kena buat apa? You kena buat non-parametric testing. Non-parametric testing pun ada assumption dia sendiri juga. Okay. So biasanya, tapi dia punya assumption lebih simple and usually tak ada masalah lah. Okay. You boleh proceed. Okay. So, nombor 3 saya checklist lulus. Tiada masalah. Nombor 4. Nombor 4 dia kata homogeneity of variance. Which means equal amount of variability in each set of score, in which that kita akan baca via Leven's test output. Ini yang saya katakan. Ada beberapa assumption ini, dia akan keluar bersama-sama dengan your SPSS data output. Hence, you don't have to worry. When you run the SPSS itself, data tu akan keluar, data tu capture assumption. Jadi, you akan baca assumption daripada data output. Inilah salah satu contohnya. Okay, macam contoh MLR ada banyak lagi lah. Okay. So this is a very simple one. So number 4 Leven's test. Leven's test ni ada dekat dalam output untuk independent t-test. So nanti kita akan tengok contoh dia. So now let's say number 1, 2 and 3 I fulfill successfully. Now number 4 is subject to ni lah, okay, kepada output tersebut. So now there you are. I'm going to run the SPSS output. Okay. Ini satu benda lagi yang selalulah pening kepala lah kita sebagai supervisor bila memeriksa pelajar punya thesis, regardless of any program lah, daripada AE sampailah ke PhD. Okay. Yes, we have students who copy paste the SPSS table output. Salah di sisi undang-undang 100%. Jangan just pergi klik SPSS output tu, right click, copy, kemudian you paste. Dia akan berterabur salah. Like I mentioned to you many times, okay, to all of my students, remember this. You don't need all of the output. Tak semua. Ambil beberapa yang penting saja untuk dilaporkan. Jadi jangan copy paste. You copy paste, kita memang automatic tolak lah chapter 4 you. Kita tahu dah. You memang kena buat correction chapter 4. It shows that you tak faham pun. So, apa yang saya nak kena extract, apa yang penting, yes, kita akan tengok nanti apa yang penting untuk dilaporkan. Okay? Macam mana saya nak tahu benda itu penting ataupun tidak? Very simple. You can refer to example of a thesis, or you don't want to refer to thesis, you ambil standard analysis output in any of the journals. In any of the journals, reputable journals, okay, high index journal, you tengok bagaimana mereka laporkan mereka punya data. That is the standard data yang kita nak tengok sebenarnya. You will never go wrong. Trust me, you will never go wrong if you refer to all of this journal output. Okay, alright. So there you are. Okay, kalau you run independent t-test dalam SPSS, the simple one, memang dia keluar macam ni lah. Memang ini output yang terakhir. Ramai student copy paste yang ini. Ini memang totally salah lah. So tolong jangan buat. Kalau you copy paste yang ini, memang kita tahulah bahawasanya awak tak faham lah. Okay, again, so apa yang kita nak tengok? Remember just now, like I mentioned to you, okay, this one. Jangan refer to seniors. Yes, thank you Puan Munira. Exactly. Do not refer to your seniors. Itu adalah ajaran sesat lah sebenarnya. Okay. So Leven's test dekat sini, kan tadi saya cakap number 4. Number 4 ada things that I belum buktikan lagi. So ini ada dekat dalam awak punya this one. Your independent sample t-test output dekat sini. Nampak ni dia tulis dekat sini awal-awal. So dekat sini Leven's test. So before you proceed in reading the output over here, sila baca ini dahulu. Kenapa saya kena baca ini dahulu? I'm not teaching you stats, but I'm just teaching. It needs to be associated with this presentation lah, okay? Because why? Because dekat sini, you akan tengok kepada yang ini. Either the variances assume or not assume, because we are looking at this value. The value here is supposed to be not significant. If the value are not significant, hence the equal variances assume. When the equal variances assume, you have successfully met the assumptions number 4. Okay, there you are. Then you boleh proceed lah. Maka dengan itu you boleh proceed. You akan ambil data pada barisan atas ini. So let's say you're very panic kan? You're very chicken. Oh my God, doctor, number 4, ini saya dapat 0.000 lah. It's significant. What am I supposed to do, doctor? So don't worry. You can still ambil output ini. Because why? Because you will proceed with like I said to you, like I mentioned to you before, jangan pergi buat non-parametric testing. Dalam independent t-test, dia ada satu lagi analisis. Dia panggil sebagai Welch test. Welch test ni dia akan tengok kepada equal variances, not assume. You akan proceed untuk ambil yang bawah ini. So this test akan memberitahu kita bahawasanya if ini adalah significant, iaitu 0.000 kosong ataupun less than 0.05, then kita akan rujuk kepada data yang bawah. So you can still proceed sebenarnya dengan you punya output yang ini. Okay, but you did not mention, you did not fulfill lah yang ini. Tetapi dalam penulisan kena mention bahawasanya saya tak fulfill yang ini, so I will proceed with the wedge test. Wedge test itself, okay, memberi data sebegini untuk saya proceed, untuk ambil barisan yang bawah, because I did not met the assumptions number 4, for example. Okay, so in this case, of course lah kita fulfill, maka kita akan pergi kepada barisan atas. So sekarang ni is the matter of what data needs to be extracted. Not everything. What data needs to be extracted dalam menggambarkan independent t-test. So here, now we have successfully met all of the assumptions. So first thing first adalah kita nak ambil t-value. Ambil t-value, ambil degree of freedom, and the value of the significant. So this is 0.020, less than 0.05, hence it is significant. So it shows that the data has a significant difference lah, okay, between, for example, the control and experiment group. Okay, right. So next ialah kita nak tengok mean differences. Ini memang penting. Ini memang penting, dan kita juga nak tengok confidence interval. Sebab confidence interval ini menunjuk tentang serakan data. Okay, how far does the data is actually distributed within the lower region and the upper region in the standard bell curve of the data itself. Yang itu yang penting lah. This is something that we need to report. So there you are. And last but not least, you juga kena calculate effect size. So yang ini saya tak perlu ajar in detail lah. Yang ini nanti mungkin dalam sesi Dr. Lia ataupun you dah pernah belajar statistik, you patut tahu yang ini. Apa yang nak kena report dalam ini. By right sepatutnya at this stage you dah patut tahu. Okay, apa yang kena report dekat dalam ini. Okay, so now we are done. We already have the data. Extracted all of the information which is necessary for your writing. Now is the write-up session. Okay, macam mana nak tulis assumption ini together dengan nak tulis output untuk this t-test itself, independent t-test. So I give you an example. Actually, this method untuk tulis journals, tetapi you boleh kembangkan lagi dalam penulisan thesis. But honestly speaking, in thesis writing, sometimes bila you tulis dalam bentuk yang kompleks, less complex, okay, tetapi padat, okay, ada all the necessary information, itu adalah lebih baik daripada you menulis panjang, sangat panjang, okay, redundant of information, yang itu sebenarnya adalah satu penulisan yang it's not a critical writing lah. Dia ada step dia dalam menulis thesis itself. Okay, I'm giving you an example of what needs to be reported in your write-up. This is the APA style. Hence, this is also applicable in writing your journal output. So, you mulakan dengan ayat ni. An independent t-test was used to compare. Up to you. Okay, I'm giving you headings. Headings. Okay, next. You tulis yang ini. Neither Shapirovic statistic was significant, indicating that the assumption of normality was not violated. This depends on how you're going to maneuver based on the normality testings yang you guna kat sini. So for my case, let's say for example, I'm using this one. But if you use this one or this one, then you have to have your very own interpretation lah. Dia bukan sendiri-sendiri, dia ada standard interpretation dia. Okay, I'm sure you tahulah kalau you baca about the statistics. So this is how they interpret lah. They were just telling very simple. But for your thesis, you maybe kena tulis sikit lah berapa value ke apa ke dan sebagainya. There is a way lah for you to elaborate certain information in your thesis writing. But for journal, the number of words is crucial. That's why in journals you need to summarize certain things. Okay, but I'm giving you headings lah. Pelajar-pelajar boleh pandai-pandai lah cari cara. So seterusnya ceritakan juga tentang this one. The Leven's test were also non-significant. Thus, equal variances can be assumed. This is still a assumptions at assumptions level. Masih menjelaskan tentang assumptions. Okay. Alright. Now baru you report you punya output. The t-test was statistically significant with the experiment group. Masukkan nilai mean, masukkan nilai the standard deviation itself, and then this is the mean difference kan? That's why I said mean difference is very important, because here you are explaining about how this experiment group is higher than the control melalui berapa banyak. It says that 2 point higher scores. Then people is actually interested to look at this one. 95% CI. This is standard format. Memang kena report. Selepas ni you report tentang CI, the confidence interval. This is the lower and this is the upper. Then the control group. Baru you masukkan the T value. T, degree of freedom, okay, 8, the T value, significant, and the two-tail test with the D. D ni is the effect size. You have to learn how to calculate effect size. Different inferential stats have different formula for effect size. Mesti calculate, mesti report. Effect size is very important. Okay, it shows the degree of differences. Okay, in your research intervention. So you must report effect size. That is very valuable in your study. So must have effect size. Okay, each analysis has its own formula in calculating the effect size. So you can Google and tengok formula tu, and then you include the information macam mana nak kira effect size tersebut. Okay, alright. So this is the standard method on how you're going to report. Jadi setiap analysis will have a different standard report. This is for independent t-test. Dependent will have a different format. Multiple integration have a different format. Mancova different format. Manova different. Semua ada format dia yang tersendiri lah. Okay. You can refer to certain journals or you can refer to certain textbooks. They have standard formats lah untuk tulis the output itself. Okay. Then last but not least, mesti jawabnya ini. Because tadi kita ada objektif, kita ada sequence, kita ada null hypothesis, remember? Your statistical hypothesis tu mesti jawab. So this, bila you nak conclude kan, this resulting in failing to accept. So in hypothesis testing, my student always cakap macam ni, I reject. You tak boleh tulis reject the hypothesis. Itu ayat yang salah. It's either accept, fail to accept. Ingat ini sampai bila-bila. Accept, fail to accept. You don't say accept or reject the hypothesis. Therefore, we will reject the hypothesis. No, you will use the term accept or fail to accept the null hypothesis. In which, then baru you jawab lah. Sebab you fail to accept the null hypothesis, maka you support the alternative kan. So you repeat balik atau copy balik statement awak punya alternative hypothesis tersebut dalam awak punya write-up. Dan barulah orang akan nampak lah. Okay. Bahawasanya, okay, this is the hypothesis yang telah you berjaya buktikan. Bahawasanya, there's a this and everything. Okay, boleh. So that is the standard format yang you kena tulis. Ini adalah information penting. Yang pertama, if let's say your statistical significant value here, dia tulis 0.00, which is very significant lah. Bagus Tolong jangan tulis P kat sini 000. Salah. Kalau 000 mesti tulis sebegini, less than 0.001. Untuk value yang ini saja, 0.00, tulis sebegini. Tapi kalau value dia 0, macam tadi, 0 berapa? 0.020. Yang ini you tulis less than 0.005. Only applicable to this one only. 0.000 kena tulis sebagai less than 0.001. And another thing is, remember this one. It's either accept or fail to accept. There's no accept or reject hypothesis. The same thing. Every year student akan datang tulis kat saya, reject the hypothesis, reject the hypothesis. Therefore, researcher reject the hypothesis. Tidak, fail to accept. And then please counter balik dengan tulis you punya alternative hypothesis. Okay. And then there you are. It shows that you are done. You are done. So dalam chapter 4 ini, itu sahaja sampai peringkat itu. Sebab apa? Sebab you hanya dapat data, buktikan data. Analyze about the pattern, critically analyze the pattern, buktikan pattern tersebut dengan menggunakan inferential statistik, tulis output tersebut, kemudian buktikan dia punya buktikan dia punya objektif, buktikan dia punya research question, buktikan dia punya hypothesis, kemudian that's it, you are done. Because this is just data analysis. You don't have to write further. This actually in line with the previous evidence supported. No, itu semua tidak perlu dalam chapter 4. Itu dalam chapter 5. Chapter 5 is where you're going to Dr. Farid, if on the dot 0.005, kalau on the dot 0.005, Kak Lia kita tulis, Kak Lia tak sempat baca, dah hilang dia punya tulisan, dia punya soalan. Kejap saya buka.
Dr. Farid, kalau result tu 0.05.
Kalau sampai 0.5,
signifikan ke tidak?
ataupun tidak?
Kalau kita kata less or more kan,
Tapi
dia result dia betul-betul 0.05.
biasanya kita akan tulis ini kan less, lebih kecil atau sama dengan kan? Betul tak?
So kalau 0.05 tu considered significant or not?
Dia depend yang ini, yang tulisan tu, lebih kecil atau sama dengan atau lebih kecil. Macam kalau kita gunakan lebih kecil, maka kalau on the dot 0.05, maka dia tak lah. Kalau lebih kecil atau sama dengan, maka kita terima. Kan simbol matematik tu kan?
Yes.
So
So
kita
kalau dia result dia ialah 0.05, maksudnya itu not significant lah.
not significant.
Alright.
Sebab saya gunakan tadi less than 0.005.
Okay.
Kalau okay, alright. Thank you, Dr. Lia. Okay, alright. So where was I? Okay, tadi daripada objektif, research question, kemudian dan juga hypothesis testing kan dekat sebagai itu. Then that's it. We are done. That is only for data analysis. So tak perlu infer yang berlebihan lah. You nak compare, contrast, in line with the previous evidence. Okay, these are actually contradict with the results supported by this. All this you pergi argue dekat dalam you punya chapter 5. Chapter 4 is merely about the data itself saja. Jadi chapter 4 ni very interesting because dia menggambarkan researcher punya kekuatan dari segi ilmu statistik. So if you are very good in statistics, then you can produce a very good output in statistics. So when people looking at data, some researcher dia mereka suka tengok pada data. So when we look at the data, we know for a fact. But like I said, data also boleh kita manipulate dengan pelbagai bentuk. So there are so many things lah on how that we can actually rebuttal ataupun support the data yang kita obtain ni berdasarkan literature review. All that kita argue dalam chapter 5 nantilah. Okay. Alright. So last but not least, you akan come to a conclusion. So remember kalau you buka tadi dengan objektif research question hypothesis, tutup jugalah. Cakap maka dengan ini research objektif itu untuk menentukan ini dengan persoalan ini, makanya technically you answer that. You should answer your objective question and hypothesis. Okay. So let's say last but not least, you have come to a short section ni kan. Tadi ada intro short section. You patut juga ada conclusion lah short section. Kat sini is just the summary saja for the pattern of the data from the beginning to the end. So that the readers know for a fact, because when you do postgrad, for example, and you have so many data, so many variables, sometimes the reader also got confused. Okay, what am I reading? And what is the output? So you do a short summary. So you by trying to tell the readers, okay, these are the things that I would like to measure. We obtain this scoring, for example. So it shows that there is a differences. Okay, these are significant. Okay, there is a differences thing. So in a much more simpler text lah. To just to wrap up all of the information that you have obtained in your data analysis, I think, and then make small statements over there, reminder all these differences and everything in which that you're going to discuss further in the next chapter itself. And of course lah, then the readers will get more excited lah because wanted to know, okay, apa you punya justification on the data that you obtain. Kenapa tak sama dengan literature sebagainya. So that is interesting. So things are not interesting. Things are not interesting is when you write dekat chapter 5 nanti. These are in line with the literature. These are in line. Itu memang membosankan. Something that you challenge is something yang readers wanted to see more. And why is ada perbezaan? Is it because of how you conduct intervention ke? Is it because of your sample ke? Is it because of your demographic ke? Itu yang benda-benda yang ni lah. Ataupun sometimes you akan challenge in terms of dia punya CI value. You can challenge the statistical output juga sebenarnya. So kalau you ada ilmu yang lebih mendalam dalam statistik, you can use statistical evidence to challenge the literature juga. Boleh diterima juga. Okay, alright. So I think 316. I think that's it for me. From my part. Banyak-banyak pun nanti takut pelajar pun. Okay. So I think that's it kot daripada saya. I open for any Q&A sessions if you have any. Before I end my slide, I have some information. Thesis platform. Okay, so you can get all kinds of thesis from here. Okay, Malaysian thesis online, or our PITA has a direct access to ProQuest dissertations. Atau you boleh ambil daripada UiTM repository platform. So you get variety of thesis. So my suggestions to all of my students, including all of you, don't refer to your seniors AE. Baca thesis pelajar sarjana atau doktor falsafah. I'm not asking you to write the entire thesis. Look at how they write the thesis. Especially for postgraduates or the masters, by research, full research, not the coursework, full research. Then you get the better understanding lah. Okay. So platforms are here, okay, and you can download or you can have a look at my slides later and the recording, and then you try to reflect on it lah. Okay, so in writing chapter 4 for quantitative, you must have your first thing first, mesti kena ada buku statistik, okay, mesti ada manual SPSS. Dan ketiga, mesti pandai guna SPSS. Okay, untuk kuantitatif, I'm talking about kuantitatif. Mesti pandai baca output SPSS. And then kemudian, mesti refer kepada beberapa jurnal untuk tengok macam mana nak mempersembahkan awak punya data dalam standard format yang betul. Okay, that will be my point of view lah in chapter 4 writing. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. I hope that this sharing will benefit you for your AE writing, especially to those who actually buat quantitative research, okay, and going to write your chapter 4 later. I hope that you will churn a beautiful, okay, chapter 4, beautifully crafted, beautifully written chapter 4 with a very good analysis, okay, untuk disubmit kepada awak punya supervisor. Right, best of luck to everyone. Back to you, Dr. Hayati, Dr. Lia. Kalau ada apa-apa soalan daripada pelajar.
Nur Hayati, are you here? Thank you very much, Dr. Farid, for the explanation. Saya memang seronok lah kalau dengar banyak pula soalan ya. From students, anything you want to ask Dr. Farid, better ask now. Pun tak tahulah Dr. Farid, sama ada students sudah collect data or some of them have not yet, yeah. But we do remind them to quickly. They should have done or collected data lah ya. But due date tak lama lagi dah ni. Silakan Dr. Yati.
Okey, untuk para peserta ya, saya ada sediakan link. Okey, link untuk attendance hari ni wajib isi. Alright. Nanti pihak kami akan share juga recording video. Okay, so mungkin hari ni ada lagi macam tak tahu nak tanya soalan ke apa kan. Jadi nanti bila adanya recording video, you all boleh tengok. If you have any question, bolehlah tanya di dalam group WhatsApp. Okay, kita ada 3 group WhatsApp. Group WhatsApp untuk part 7, part 8 and also group khas lah. Okay, yang ini untuk student yang mengambil untuk kali kedua. Okay, dan sekali lagi ya, saya nak ni lah, alright, untuk ingatkan pada semua yang di mana bengkel AE ini tujuan kami adakan ialah untuk membantu, alright, untuk membantu para pelajar bagi menyiapkan AE anda semua pada semester ini. Okay. Dan sekali lagi ya, saya ingin juga mengingatkan bahawa esok kita ada satu lagi bengkel, okay, reviewing chapter 1, 2, 3 daripada Prof. Madia, Dr. Mawarni. Alright. Pada masa yang sama, pada pukul 10 pagi nanti saya akan share sekali lagi lah link untuk remind semua orang. Okay. Ada soalan ke lagi? Ada yang nak tanya? Anda semua sekarang berada di stage mana ya?
Pelajar ada soalan ke? Kalau nak tanya 1, 2, 3 pun boleh juga. Tanya tentang method pun boleh juga. Tak ada masalah. Okay. Feel free to share. This will be tak perlu malu. Just tanya saja.
Betul. Kita ada di sini ya. Kita ada Dr. Farid. Kita ada PM Dr. Maftuhah. Kita ada Dr. Sharifah Muzlia. Kita ada Puan Munirah. Okay. So kalau you all ada soalan, ambil peluang ini. Okay, rebut peluang ini untuk bertanya soalan. InsyaAllah ya. Mana yang kami boleh bantu, kami bantu. Ada soalan?
Definitely.
TDA kita pun ada di sini ya, Dr. Hamimah. Alright, so ada soalan tak? Ada soalan?
Assalamualaikum doktor.
Assalamualaikum.
Kalau saya pakai mixed method, is it possible still kalau saya gabungkan dua-dua tu, I mean dia descriptive analysis dalam chapter 4 tu? Ataupun dia kena still asing-asing?
Maksud Fazrul macam mana? Mana satu maksudnya? Deskriptif yang mana satu?
Tadi kan apa doktor ada cakap pasal pasal table tu kan?
Which one? Demographic or which one?
For demographics.
Demographics.
For demographics.
My suggestions would be you separate, because the demographic profiles for the qualitative parts will be different from the quantitative bahagian, sebab persampalan pun berbeza dari segi, sebab you buat mixed method kan, betul tak? Kan? Jadi you akan start dengan kuantitatif dahulu, and then kemudian once you are done with all of the quantitative, then you pergi kepada kualitatif pula. You start all over, you mula dengan dia punya demographic profiles terlebih dahulu, kemudian baru you proceed dengan you punya thematic analysis, if you're doing thematic lah, analysis for example. So you separate, sebab the profiles, let's say for example you interview the person kan for the qualitative parts, the one you interview tu, dia punya profile berbeza, tak sama dengan the samples yang you collect for the quantitative part. Kan, betul tak?
Betul.
Betul. And then once you are done with the quantitative, you are done with the qualitative, and then you akan masuk kepada bahagian yang ketiga, if kalau you ada triangulation lah, kalau ada triangulation, baru you report the triangulation punya output.
I see. And also, kalau kita collect data quantitative tu daripada Google Form, is it still considered as quantitative?
You collect data daripada Google Form. You collect apa daripada Google Form itu? Demographic tersebut?
Not just demographic. I mean, macam data dia perception.
The perception itu perception dalam bentuk apa dahulu? Perception tu adalah dalam
essay.
Dalam bentuk apa?
Dalam bentuk essay.
Dalam bentuk essay dia it depends on how you wanted to translate the data. Are you translating the data in the form of numerical? Ada tak?
Yes.
You tukar dalam bentuk macam mana tu? You tukar.
I mean tukar, I mean the gist of their content lah.
The gist of the content.
Macam kalau dia cakap apa? I think this is about this. Lebih kurang macam tu lah. Daripada responden tu lah.
Okay, so yang Fazrul nak dia sebagai output dalam bentuk apa?
Dalam bentuk dia macam describe and relate daripada past research.
That is definitely qualitative lah. It shouldn't be quantitative.
Sorry. Qualitative.
That is qualitative, because I don't see any form of translation lah in terms of changing into numerical. Even if you look into the frequency itself pun, dalam kualitatif pun ada frequency juga. Tapi that doesn't represent numerical. That is just to represent the sub-team, for example, dengan dia punya nilai kekerapan tu kan. Tapi itu still dalam kualitatif.
I'm sorry, I mean qualitative, bukan
qualitative.
Sorry, Doctor.
Sorry. Sure. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
Sama. All right. Okay, thank you, Fazrul. Is there any more questions, anyone? Oh, Rinka. Selain using Greggy and Morgan table, apa bagi kami guna? Okay, Rinka. Kalau Rinka tengok last semester saya punya sharing session, saya dah ajar. Ya, Rinka ni nama very familiar. Did I taught you before, Rinka? Rinka kan? I taught you before kan?
Yes, Doctor.
Okay. If you still remember, you can also use the
Selain tu Doktor ada lagi tak?
Daripada itu,
G-Power.
biasanya saya guna G-Power. Most of the times I use G-Power. Aside from Greggy Morgan lah. Not that I know of, or maybe other doctors have other information associated with it. But most of the times I use G-Power because saya dah tahu apa bentuk analisis yang saya nak guna pakai, maka saya terus linkkan G-Power tu dengan analisis yang saya guna. Maka dia sebenarnya lebih menjimatkan lah, sampel saya lebih kecil berbanding dengan Greggy Morgan. So I would suggest that you go for G Power Ringka because G Power is free and available, and the tutorials are also there on the net.
Okay, Doktor. Thank you.
Kalau tak ada Ringka, you stick je lah dengan Grady Morgan pun okay. Kalau you buat apa tu, a survey research design lah.
Boleh. Thank you, Doktor.
Okay, sambung. Okay, kalau tak ada soalan lagi ke, kembali kepada Dr. Hayati lah ya.
Okay, jadi tak ada soalan lagi ke? Tak ada soalan ya? Alright, kalau tidak ada soalan.
Ada satu lagi Dr. Hayati.
Satu lagi, yes.
Dr. Can my SPSS run if my sample is only 21? Nurul Hakimah, SPSS dia boleh run apa sekalipun. Kita letak apa-apa dummy data pun dia boleh run sebab dia adalah satu software yang kita sendiri yang kena faham. Can I run if my sample is 21? Boleh tak jelaskan sikit Hakimah tentang sampel tu dulu before saya bagi tahu boleh run ataupun tidak. Can I know the nature of the data and what sort of research that you're doing? Population is only population ke sample? Your population or your sample that is 30? Kalau population is 30, sampel sangat-sangat kecil. Population of sample Hakimah tengah naik kot. Okay, tak apa-apa kita tunggu.
Dr. Farid, she said that her sample is 21, population is 30.
Okay. Sample is 21, the population is 30. Okay, but what sort of analysis that you are going to need? May I know what sort of analysis, Hakimah? Okay. Alright, tak apa. Analisis apa nanti Hakimah yang akan buat? Okay, tak apa. Maka ada kehilangan sampel. It's mixed method. Mixed method kuantitatif. Okay. Right. On your quantitative part is that, how do you determine your sample size in the first place?
Tanya Dr. Farid dia nak buat apa, correlation ke, comparative ke.
Hello, Dr. Farid, can you hear my voice?
Yeah.
I just got
boleh.
back from school, so
Okay,
I'm just going to clarify in case my SPSS doesn't run. So I only have 21 respondents. My sample, my population sample, I'm my target respondents are non-TESOL students, which includes PJK and art students in semester 8. Okay. So I will give them pre-test and then post-test, and in between they have to do an activity. So I have to give them pre-test to test their interest. Their confidence level, and then an activity, and then their post-test after doing that activity. So I forgot what's the name. It's t-test. Yeah, t-test.
So you are actually doing a dependent t-test because you measure the effects of the intervention before and after. Am I right? Betul,
Yeah, I remember writing in my proposal. It's called paired t-test, pre and post. I compare. Yeah, and then that's for my question 1 and question 2. For my question 3, it will be an interview, to see their perception. So some of them will be interviewed. So is that okay? I am confident in my research, but I'm scared that when I collect my data, it will not run.
Okay.
So what do you think?
Okay.
Thank
so
you.
Now you're doing a paired t-test. Paired t-test, or also known as dependent t-test. Yeah. So you're measuring the effects of intervention before and after. Okay, that's okay. Right. Second thing is you wondering whether you can proceed, okay, to run in the SPSS ataupun tidak. So my answer will be your sample size is very low. Okay. So macam saya jelaskan tadi adalah whether that it can fulfill the normality testing first. Jadi normality testing itself is something that you have to run first. But by looking at your sample size, which is pretty much very low, I would highly recommend that you switch into a non-parametric testing. itu adalah lebih selamat. Because when you go for normality testing, due to your low sample size, it is very sensitive and probably you will not dapat the normality testing. You will not fulfill the requirement of the normality testing. Hence, you cannot proceed with the parametric testing. As such, okay, I would highly suggest that you go for non-parametric testing. You will eventually dapat results yang sama. Kalau nak membuktikan perbezaan tersebut, you buat non-parametric pun you still boleh buktikan. So my suggestion is that you proceed with non-parametric testing, which is equivalent to dependent t-test. Ada dia punya testing.
Is it okay if you like give me like a very brief summary of non-parametric? I kind of forgot.
Okay,
Because I just joined this one after my school. I'm so sorry.
Okay. Okay, kejap. Ada masa kan? Ada masa kejap. Mana? There you are. This will be the non-parametric testing. There you go. So yours is with this one, the PET or the dependent sample t-test. So my suggestion is you go for Wilcoxon sign rank test. Okay? Boleh?
Okay, I understand. I screenshot the table already.
Yeah. Never mind. The slides will be provided later, so you can go through, and also because you baru balik pada sekolah, nanti you baca tengok dia punya tu rakaman nanti
Okay. So I can proceed, but it's better to use the non-parametric testing. Okay. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Sama. Okay. Good luck. Okay, with your chapter 4. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Yati.
Thank you very much, Dr. Farid. Sangat-sangat membantu ya. Sangat-sangat membantu. Alright. Izinkan saya untuk mengingatkan kepada semua pelajar Part 8. Alright, semua pelajar Part 8. Di mana anda, okay, you have to submit your final draft of your AE, okay, pada 14 Julai. Alright, 14 Julai 2022. So, meaning tak lama lagi. Sekarang kita dah bulan 5. Okay, kita dah bulan 5. So, kena ada plan, okay, kena ada strategi. Bagaimana sibuk pun you all, alright, dengan tugasan seharian, pastikan ada masa yang diperuntukkan untuk menulis your AE. Okay, dan kalau boleh keraplah, okay, berhubung dengan your supervisor. Okay, kerap berhubung dengan your supervisor, sebab saya takut nanti okay, you tidak dapat tak dapat nak follow the due date ni. Okay, pada 14 Julai you have to submit your final draft kepada supervisor, kemudian supervisor akan kembalikan untuk pembetulan pada 21 Julai. Dan akhirnya pada 28 Julai, 28th of July 2022 adalah your final submission. Okay, final submission adalah 28 Julai. Alright, so kena ingat tarikh penting ini, dan from time to time I will remind you in our group WhatsApp. Alright, boleh ya semua? Boleh? Okay, Dr. Lia, ada sebarang kata-kata semangat yang sebelum kita akhiri kita punya bengkel.
Okay, thank you Dr. Yati and Dr. Farid. Saya rasa petang ni kita dah belajar sedikit lah ya, a review of what to write in chapter 4. So even if students have not collected their data or are planning to, at least dah masuk balik gear lah, tak tahulah gear 2 ke gear 3 ke ya. As long as you all progress, we are happy with that ya. Supaya seperti pesan Dr. Yati, nanti jangan hujung-hujung nanti baru nak panik, baru nak cakap belum pernah jumpa supervisor lah ya, supervisor pun komplain juga. So kami pun tak dapat nak bantu kalau kes yang hujung-hujung ni lah ya. So whatever your problems with statistics ke, with writing ke, with relationship with supervisors ke ya, or personal problems ke ya, do share with me or Dr. Yati and we will try to help you. Jangan biarkan diri anda kesepian seorang. Okay, that's all. Thank you very much for today, Dr. Yati. Maybe we should end lah ya, bagi semua orang rehat. Thank you very much, Dr. Farid.
Okay, terima kasih semua Dr. Farid. Terima kasih banyak. Terima kasih untuk semua. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum. Good luck.
Assalamualaikum. Bye. See you
Bye.
tomorrow.
Thank you, doctors.
Jumpa esok ya pukul berapa?
10 pagi.
10 pagi.
Yes, esok chapter 1, 2, 3, 10 pagi.
Okay, bye.
Bye. You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Ni Farid share slide ya dengan Dr. Yati ya.
Boleh. Saya send nantilah slide ni hati-hati.
Okay,
Terima kasih
thank
Dr.
you.
Yati, Dr. Nia. Saya
Thank you, Dr.
Okay.
Farid.
log
Terima
out
kasih
dulu
ya Dr. Farid.
Yes,
Terima kasih
yes.
banyak.
Selamat berehat.
Selamat berehat. Saya nak sambung baca DRP thesis.
Ingat nak balik tadi.
Itu. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, bye. Oh, I should just stop recording.